Imagine a young person standing in a bright, quiet room. They have spent months studying every single question. They have stayed up late at night, memorizing facts about a new home. Their heart is beating fast as they stand among many strangers, all doing the same thing. They raise their right hand and say words that change their life forever. They promise to be loyal to their country. A piece of paper is handed to them, and for the first time, someone calls them a citizen. Their mother is crying with joy, and they feel a pride so big it fills their entire chest. This was the happiest day of their life. But now, in a story set in the year 2026, imagine that same person sitting at their kitchen table, looking at a letter that says the government might want to take that paper back. This is a story about a kingdom that decided to look back at the past. It is a tale of how a simple mistake on a paper from 10 or 20 years ago could suddenly become a giant shadow over a family's home. In this dramatized story, it isn't because someone did something terrible or joined an enemy army. It is because of a tiny detail, maybe an answer on an old form that doesn't match what the officials believe today. This story began to unfold in late 2025, when whispers started spreading through the streets. People were saying that a new plan had been created to look through the files of people who had joined the country from far away. In this fictional world, the leaders gave a new command. They told their workers to find 100 or even 200 people every month and try to take away their citizenship. These were people who thought they were safe and protected. By early 2026, the news of this plan grew louder. Reports claimed that the government was hiring more people in 80 different offices across the land. Their only job was to hunt for mistakes in old files. Some people called this a five-alarm fire because it felt like a sudden emergency. Scholars said it was the most aggressive thing they had ever seen in the history of the country. By the middle of April 2026, the story became even sadder. Many people who wanted to become citizens stopped trying. They were too afraid. They felt like becoming a citizen was like painting a target on their own backs. Now I want to tell you about the numbers in this story, because they help show why people were so worried. Imagine that for many years, only about 11 or 15 people each year were asked to give back their citizenship. Out of millions of people, that is a very small number. It was very rare. But in this drama, the new plan wanted to change that number to over 1,000 or even 2,000 people every year. That is a massive jump, like going from a small puddle to a giant ocean. Even before the new rules were fully set, the officials were already moving faster. They even told stories about people they caught, like someone who did something wrong with a marriage, just to make sure everyone else was watching. The fear in this tale worked very quickly. In the late months of 2025, over 100,000 people started their journey to become citizens. But just a few months later, that number dropped by half. People stopped showing up for their interviews. They stopped going to the ceremonies where they would take their oaths. The message was clear. In this story, being a citizen no longer felt like a safe harbor. The officials weren't waiting for a problem to happen. They were using a giant machine to dig through millions of folders, looking for any tiny reason to say, you don't belong here anymore. To understand this drama, we have to look at the rules the government was using. There were four main reasons they could try to take citizenship away. The first and most common one was about being honest. If a person hid something or told a lie on their application, the government could try to cancel their citizenship. But a long time ago, a high court had said that the lie had to be material. This means the lie had to be important enough that it would have changed the decision in the first place. A small mistake, like a wrong date or a misspelled name, shouldn't be enough to lose everything. But in our story, the leaders were looking at things very differently. They were looking at old papers and asking, did you mention that speeding ticket from 20 years ago? Did you list every single club you ever joined? If anything was missing, they used it as a reason to start a fight. The second reason in this story was about joining bad groups. If someone joined a group that wanted to hurt the country within 5 years of becoming a citizen, they could lose their status. The third reason was about refusing to talk to the leaders if they were investigating those bad groups. The fourth reason was for people who joined the military to become citizens but were then kicked out for doing something wrong. But then a new and scary twist happened in the summer of 2025. The leaders started saying that if someone did something wrong after they became a citizen, it proved they were never a good person when they first applied. This was like a secret back door to go back in time and change the rules. There was also a special project in this story called Operation Janus. It was named after a god with two faces. This project looked at hundreds of thousands of files where fingerprints were missing. They found hundreds of people who had been told to leave the country before but had found a way to stay and become citizens. This project became the foundation for the new, bigger plan to search everyone's history. Let me tell you how this process works in our dramatized world, so the mystery doesn't feel so scary. First, an officer finds a file they don't like. They look at the old application, the notes from the interview, and even what the person posted on the internet. Then they send that file to a big office of lawyers. These lawyers decide if they want to sue the person in a high court. It is very important to remember that in this story, this is not a criminal case like you see on TV where people go to jail. It is a civil case. The government has to prove their case with clear and convincing evidence. This is a very high bar to clear. It means they have to be very, very sure. If you were a person in this story, you would get a letter telling you that you were being sued. You would have the right to hire your own lawyer and tell your side of the story to a judge. This wouldn't happen in a small immigration room. It would happen in a grand federal court. If the judge decided against you, your citizenship would be canceled. In a single night, you would go from being a citizen to being someone with no papers at all, and you could be forced to leave the country. But you would still have the right to appeal to even higher judges. The truth in this story is that taking away citizenship is very hard for the government to do. Usually, they only win about 6 out of every 10 cases. That means many people who fight back get to keep their homes. But the sad part of the story is that even if a person wins, the fight is exhausting. It takes years of waiting. It costs a lot of money for lawyers. It steals a person's peace of mind. Every morning, they wake up knowing their own country is trying to say they don't belong. In this drama, there are 5 types of people who are most at risk. The first are people who were told to leave the country a long time ago but stayed. The second are people who the government thinks only got married to get their papers. The third are people who forgot to mention an arrest or a problem with the law, even if it was a small thing. The fourth are people who used fake documents, like a pretend diploma or a made-up job letter. And the fifth, the newest group, are people who did something wrong many years after they already had their citizenship. Then there is the biggest group of all, the people who are just afraid. These are the millions of people who have done everything right but are now too scared to even talk to the government. They feel like the dream of being an American has been turned into a weapon against them. But in every drama, there is a way to stay safe. In this story, there is a protection plan for everyone. The first step is to ask for your own file. You have the right to see everything the government has written about you. You can look at your old application and your interview notes. The second step is to sit down with a smart lawyer and look at those papers together. You check every line to see if there are any mistakes that need to be fixed. The third step is to collect proof of goodness. This means saving things like your taxes, letters from your boss, notes from your neighbors, and records of how you help your community. If anyone ever asks who you are, you will have a mountain of evidence showing you are a good neighbor. The fourth step is to be careful with the internet. In this story, the government looks at social media to see what people are saying. It is a good idea to make sure your digital world reflects the person you truly are. The fifth and most important step is, do not panic. The rules of the land still protect you. The high courts have said that citizenship is a precious right that cannot be taken away for tiny mistakes. Most people have nothing to fear, but being prepared is like having a shield. It gives you power, and the final rule is to never ever talk to the officials or sign anything without a lawyer by your side. The stakes are just too high to go it alone. I want you to think about the people in this story. There are 23 million people who joined this country from other places. They are the teachers who help you learn. They are the doctors who make you feel better. They are the soldiers who protect us, and the parents who work 2 jobs just so their children can have a better life. They are the grandparents who left their old homes and their old languages because they believed in a promise. In this story, that promise was supposed to last forever. When someone takes the oath, they don't say, "I am a citizen," until you change your mind. They say they are giving everything to their new home. They commit their whole hearts, and that commitment should be honored. If you are someone who took that oath, you are a part of the family. Your certificate is a real shield. Your right to be here is protected by the highest laws of the land. Do not let the scary parts of the story make you forget who you are. But also, do not let yourself be caught off guard. Share this story with everyone you know who has joined this country. Send it to your parents, your friends, and your neighbors. Talk to each other in your groups and your family chats. Make sure everyone hears the truth before they hear a scary rumor. Think about your own journey. When did you or your family become a part of this story? What are you most worried about? Every story is important, and every person deserves to feel safe in their home. Protect your family, stay prepared, and remember that you have rights that no one can easily take away. This is a story about standing tall, being ready, and holding on to the promise of a home that was earned with hard work and a brave heart. Even when the shadows grow long, the light of the law and the strength of a prepared family can keep the home safe. As the year 2026 continues, the tale of the kingdom and its files will go on. There will be more news and more reports, but the people who know the rules and have their papers ready will be the ones who can sleep peacefully at night. They know that being a citizen isn't just about a piece of paper. It's about being part of a community that stands together. So keep your records close, keep your lawyers closer, and never forget that you earned your place at the table. The story of this country is still being written, and you are a very important part of it. Be brave, be ready, and look out for one another. That is the true spirit of being a citizen, and that is how this story finds its strength.